The Rock, you still there?
Khan, I'm still here, Khan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Khan.
Yeah,
All right, so shalom, 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 shalom. So once again, you're now under the sounds of the voice of the true disciples of Christ. And this is actually another true disciples of Christ Bible study. And we got a very interesting, controversial topic this evening. The topic is going to be the Israelites were and are only of an African, Negro, Black, whichever term you prefer, descent, not Latino, not Hispanic, or so-called Native American, unless you're of a Negro's father descendancy. And so what's actually inspiring in these videos is that, there's a small faction of us, which is primarily Tazadaq, the true disciples of Christ, that's come to the conclusion that the vast majority of these camps that you see out here are teaching lies. They're not teaching the truth. They're allowing men in these camps that's actually of a mixed stock. They have an admixture of Mongoloid and Edomite descendancy, and they may have a little bit of Jake in there. But this is not permitted according to the scriptures. And so the other thing, there's some, whoever did it, they flagged my video on YouTube because they can't disprove what we're saying here at the True Disciples of Christ. So they take a coward whole move and try and flag the video instead of trying to disprove the information that we're putting out. And they can't do it because this is the truth. And there is only one truth. So our motive is not to denounce anyone. Our motive is to teach and give true history, which is right knowledge according to thus saith the Lord. And that true history is all Israelites were of a so-called Negroid descent. You want to call them Africans? Oh, well, because they came out of that place that they're calling Africa. Now, we know the name of the continent. It's not Africa. But so that the bulk of our people can understand, we're going to use these bywords such as that. Now, this history of which we speak traces back to the African Hebrew Israelites that has been severely suppressed from American textbooks. The Israelites that are teaching that these Latinos, so-called Hispanics, whatever they may be, and so-called Native Americans are Israelites, that is a misleading and deceptive doctrine. What they all should be saying is if you are not of a Negroid descent on your father's side, then you're not an Israelite. That's the truth. On that sign, it's supposed to say of Negroid descent in those places like Venezuela, Argentina, Peru. You know what I mean? You pick your choice, Panama, pick it, Central and South America, to sum it up. If they're not of a Negroid descent, then you're not an Israelite. Next thing I want to say is they try and tap dance, and they've convinced you people with lies that, oh, well, the northern tribe is of a Hispanic descent. I dare anyone to disprove that Hispanic is not even a race. That was named after their conquerors, the Spaniards. You understand? Latino is not a race. That was named after the language of Latin. Edomite spoke that language. I believe you refer to them as white people. This is not racism. This is education. Racism came from the people that control the world that try and write us out of history. And we're going to go into that tonight, man. And we're going to severely ruffle some feathers. And so all of these are misinterpretations of the Holy Scriptures. Now, I'll start off by saying the Bible is not a European history book. The Bible is not a Jewish European history book. The Bible is not a Latino history book. The Bible is not a Hispanic history book, nor is the Bible a so-called Native American history book of Asian descent. The Bible, I thought I turned this down. Who the hell keep texting me, man? It's the spirit of Satan right there. Give me a second here, man. The Bible is and always has been a Black history book. Nothing else. It's the so-called Black history book. And, you know, I challenge anyone to disprove anything that I'm saying to the contrary. It's a Black history book. The Bible is the history book of the Negro Israelite. I'm going to throw that term in there, Negro, so you can understand that I'm talking about a so-called Black man and so-called Black woman. Understand that. So it's a book that came out of what they refer to as Africa, so that you could understand. It was written by Black people. When I say Black, I'm talking about Israelites. But I need to put that term Black in there because a lot of people are trying to come in and take over our nationality. So I want to make that very clear. So it was written by Blacks, Israelites, for Black Israelites, about Black Israelites. And we're going to demonstrate that. Now, that being said, hopefully I got, a strong reader. The first nation mentioned in the Bible, Tazadaq, is an African nation called Ethiopia. I dare anyone to prove otherwise. Hold on, let me see who's going in the room, man. If people get knocked out of the room, I'm not going to keep going back here, letting you back in because it's disrupting the spirit. I'm trying to stay in the spirit. So the Bible, the first nation mentioned in it is an African nation called Ethiopia, which is rightfully called Cush. Can someone get me the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 13, to prove all things? Can you get that? Kahan, Yeshaya? Book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 13.
You said Genesis chapter 1?
Genesis 2. Chapter 2, verse 13.
Book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 13. And the name of the second river is Gahan. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia.
Khan. So this is actually near the Tigris, or between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. Gahan is another name for the Tigris River, so that you can understand when you deal with geography. So the first nation mentioned in the Bible is Cush, Ethiopia, aka Ethiopia. And I want you to notice that these African Hebrews that wrote the Bible, they didn't mention anything about Spain from the start. They didn't mention anything about France from the start. They didn't mention anything about England from the start. They didn't mention anything about Germany or Hispaniola, any of those things from the start, but it mentioned Black Ethiopia, Cush. That's the first nation that was mentioned in the Bible. You can't even call me a liar because we just proved it with scriptures. Now, again, the ancient name of Ethiopia is Cush, right? From there, let's go to the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter, and we're going to deal with the table of nations, and we're going to read verse 6 through 10. These people was of a Negro descent, just like the Israelites are of a Negro descent, always have been, always will be.
Book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan. Verse 7. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sapta, and Rama, and Sabaticha, and the
Khan,
sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan.
Khan.
And Cush begat Nimrod.
Mm-hmm.
He began to be a mighty one in the earth.
Okay.
He
So
was
now let's stop right there. Nimrod was a so-called black man. Nimrod was a so-called black man. He built what is known as the tower. He was in the place called Sumer. They call it Babel. But when you look at ancient artifacts, it's referred to as Sumer. You understand? He was a so-called black man. We're all dealing with all black people right now. So I want any Israelite to show me at what point that they're claiming that these northern tribes became so-called Hispanics and Asian Native Americans. There is no historical record of that, and there's no record of that anywhere in the Bible. And like you say, use scriptures, because I'm going to use scriptures to disprove all of that. So thus far, the only thing we're dealing with is so-called black people, Negro descent. Go ahead, read on.
Verse 9, he was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, and the land of Shinar.
So these black people, the Israelites, these Egyptians, which are Africans, and so on and so forth, they not only went throughout Ethiopia, they existed out of that entire area that they now call the Middle East, which is really a part of Africa and Asia. You understand? Now, there was a German, right? A German writer, Herbert Wendt, and he confirms this point when he said that Asia is the cradle of black civilization. This is why you have a lot of Moors talking about, and people in the rap songs talking about the Asiatic black man, because they knew that the first people in Asia was black. I'm going to pull out something very briefly here. And for some of these things that I'm quoting, you can refer to from Babylon to Timbuktu and the Valley of the Dry Bones. I have another book right here. It's called Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. Interesting book. This is volume 1, the best volume. And so I said, I just made a bold statement. And I said that the first people that occupied Asia was of a so-called Negroid descent. They was black. Not what they're showing you in these TV shows, and every time you turn the TV on, you see really mixed so-called Chinese or so-called Japanese. They're not showing you the original inhabitants of these places, right? So we're gonna have a look. Well, I go here to section and race. It's page 68 and 69. It's talking about the first Chinese and the first Japanese. On page 67, it says, the first inhabitants of China seen also have been the Nigrotos, unmixed Negroes with no connection with Africa, still live in southern China. So you can't say that they came from, it makes sense. Does it not make sense? When Lot's daughters made it with him, if Lot was a so-called black man, Israelite, and his daughters were so-called black women, Israelites, what would they have produced? More black people that look like this. Now remember, they was cursed with Mongoloids. Can everyone see that? See, this is what they would call the N-word. You see what I'm saying? Can everyone see that? Everybody see that? These are what they refer to as black Chinese and black Japanese. These are the first inhabitants of that land that they call China and Japan. And it makes sense because when Lot's daughter slept with him, they produced Moab and Ammon. so-called Chinese, and so-called Japanese, who was what you refer to as a Negro, as black. The old artifacts that you see of Genghis Khan, it was a so-called door image. Now, when you look at him, he looks like a Eurocentric Asian. That's whitewashing. Oh, this occurred after the Renaissance. And I'm going to get to that as well. I'm going to rip you weak Israelites apart, man, because you've been lying and you've been confusing our people. And it's going to stop. Real priests got the Bibles now and the books now. This is how it's work. This is why you can't stop it. So, this Edomite man, this German writer, Herbert, he confirmed the point that Asia was a cradle of black civilization. So did J.A. Rogers right here in this book. He called them the Negrotos. So we can actually determine that the biblical scriptures and the scenes took place in Africa. And since it took place in Africa, when you're dealing with antiquity, Yeshaya, the features of the people and the characteristics of the people had to be what? So-called Negroes, so-called blacks, whatever you want to refer to them as. They had to be black or brown. Now, the land that they call Palestine today, in ancient times was called the land of Canaan. Now it's called Israel. Let's prove it. Because I'm back, the scripture said to prove all things. Let's get the book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 15. We're going to read verse 15 through 20. Scripture said to prove all things.
Genesis chapter 15.
10
Genesis
verse
chapter
15.
10. Genesis chapter 10, verse 15. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, and the Amorite, and the Girgasite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite, and afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar unto Gaza, as thou goest. Verse 19.
All right, go ahead.
As thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zobium, even unto Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations.
These are also called African people. Now, the Canaanites were blood brothers of the Cushites and the Marinites, which are really Egyptians. Let's get it. Let's get the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter, verse 6. From the beginning, these African Canaanites, they lived in southern Turkey, Syria, Lebanon. Lebanon, in the Bible, as you can see, it was called Sidon. When he's reading Sidon, that's referring to modern day Lebanon, Palestine, and then Jordan. Go ahead, read.
Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan.
See that? Mizraim, that's Egypt. Mizraim is upper and lower Egypt. You see what I'm saying? So, ancient historians, they did not use names of this continent, such as Asia or Africa. They use the tribal names and the national names. This is what we got to get back to. We got to stop calling ourselves Negroes, blacks, and colors. We got to get back to calling ourselves Gad, Judah, Benjamin, and so on and so forth. Palestine and the so-called Middle East, which is really an extension of Africa, I say that again. They didn't start calling it the damn Middle East until the creation of the Suez Canal. To those of you that don't know that, I know this history, so I know when this garbage took place. Prior to that, the Middle East was considered to be a part of Africa. They started that garbage with the damn Suez Canal. You understand? It's really an extension of Africa, just as Madagascar. You see Esau make the damn cartoons called Madagascar. That's a part of Africa, man. Now, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, even Ishmael, which is the father of the Arabs, were all black. All black. So you can see what a racism came into Islam as well. Because Ishmael was the father of the Arabs. Yeah, if Abraham was a so-called black man, and by the way, he had to be black because he came from Shem, right? He was a so-called black man, and he had sex with an Egyptian woman, then Ishmael had to be black. So the original Muslims were black. Moses was a so-called black man. Solomon was a so-called black man. Jeremiah was a so-called black man. Daniel was a so-called black man. Hamashiach Yahweh was a so-called black man. You understand? As all the Israelites were black. And I'm going to give you substantiated evidence. I'm going to support this with proof. The Bible never speaks of a so-called white person turning black, but it speaks several times of black Israelites turning white, which is called the disease that I've been speaking about, oculocutaneous albinism. However, in the Bible, it refers to it as leprosy. Let's prove all things. From there, let's get the book of Numbers, chapter 12, verse 10.
Book of Numbers. I'm sorry. Book of Numbers, chapter 12, verse 10. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow.
Come on. Now, now, if she was already a so-called white person, you wouldn't have been able to distinguish this, right? How many of you, let me ask you a question, good brother Eleazar. You ever been walking in Walmart and you see a so-called black person come in and most of their skin is gone? You see what I'm saying? They, what do they call it? Esau to put another term on it to try and throw you off. What do they call it? Vertigo. Yeah, they call it vertigo. It's leprosy, man. We're gonna tell the truth. Some of them, that the whole skin is completely pale. It's raw all the way up in the arms. The Bible calls that leprosy, man. Now, when a person, when you go to the book of Leviticus, I believe it's the 13th chapter, when his whole skin has turned white, they consider that to be a clean leper. You understand? They consider that to be a clean leper. And so if all of the skin is not like that, they consider to be that like a half leopard and so on and so forth, according to the Bible. You understand? This is what I was talking about in the other video. It's called oculocutaneous albinism. So from there,
Can I add this?
You finish it up. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna add something too. When
okay.
I was young,
go ahead.
When I was younger, you ever heard that saying? Bernie Mac used to say, "I'm gonna bust your head to the white meat show."
Yeah.
I actually had scraped my leg, and the white meat was showing. Like it was like my melanin had came off. I mean, it came back, but the melanin had just left, and it was the white. It was I had leopard. I had a leopard spot for a minute.
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple times also, man.
Con.
But the melanin be so strong, man, just brings it back, man. You know what I mean? Just brings it back, brings it black. From there, let's get 2 Kings 5:27.
2 Kings chapter 5, verse 27. You said 2 Kings 5:27?
Con.
2 Kings chapter 5, verse 27. The leprosy, therefore, of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence as a presence. And he went out from his presence a leper as white as snow.
So we have records and I could give you more of so-called blacks in the Bible turning what they refer to as white. But you don't see that in the reverse. Now let's prove that the Israelites were black before Esau came on the scene. From there, let's get the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. And La'alawam get Lamentations 4, verse 8. Someone get the Song of Solomon's 1 and 5. And La'alawam get Lamentations 4 and 8.
The Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black, but comely.
But beautiful. Yeah, that's crystal clear. I am black, but beautiful. Word comely means beautiful. Go and look it up for yourself. Read on.
O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar.
Stop for a second. If you know anything about biblical histories, the tents of Kedar is a black African tribe. So this person is comparing themselves to a black African tribe. He said, I'm as black as a black African tribe, the tents of Kedar. Read on.
As the curtains of Solomon.
Come on. So we can close the book right there, man. They're black. So I want to know, to all you Israelite camps, at which point did these northern tribes become what you refer to as so-called Hispanics or Latinos or Chinese Native Americans? From there, let's get Lamentations 4, verse 8.
The book of Lamentations, chapter 4, verse 8. And it reads, their visage is blacker than a coal.
Stop. I know some people don't understand that. It's written in the old Elizabethan English. That word vestige means face. You don't believe me? Go and look it up. Their vestige means their face. Their face is blacker than a coal. If you've seen coal, man, that's blacker than Wesley Snipes. That's blacker than Wesley Snipes. Their face is blacker than a coal. Read.
They are not known in the streets.
Yeah, we're not known because they done stole our identity, man. It's so prophetic. They done stole our identity and changed everything. Now they're telling us that we have no connection to the real Israelites. From there, let's get Lamentations 5 and 10. And someone get Job 30 and 30.
Book of Lamentations, chapter 5, verse 10. And it reads, our skin was black like an oven.
Yeah, our skin is black like an oven. And it's not talking about one of these modern day ovens, Kahan Darak. It's talking about one of those old ovens like my grandfather used to bake bread in. They get all black inside. You understand what I'm talking about? It's talking about one of them old ovens, not one of these modernized ovens with all that suck all on the inside of it. His skin is black like an oven. Read.
Because of the terrible famine.
Yeah, we got a famine for knowledge. From there, let's get Job 30, verse 30.
Job 30, verse 30. And it reads, my skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat.
Yeah, my skin is black upon me. So again, we see that the Israelites are black. From there, let's get Ezekiel 1, verse 7. So far, I don't see these so-called Hispanic Israelites. So my question to you, all you camps is pushing these lies. At what point did the tribes of Israel wax almost pale? Because a lot of these Hispanics, they look straight like Edomites, man. Now, we know we can produce this. This is why we say that it has to be the seed of the Father. And we're going to bring that out. We're going to support everything with scriptures. Let's go. Let's read.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, verse 7. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a cat's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass.
Like burnished brass. These are talking about the angels, man. So the angels of the Most High is so-called black also. Okay. So now let's begin dealing with one's genealogy is actually based on sperm. Because I made a bold statement saying it's determined by the seed of the father, not the mother, like the modern world was teaching, and the so-called Jews teach that, well, you got to be of an Israelite woman or a Jewish woman heritage for you to be a Jew. And then then what they done to the so-called blacks in the 60s and say, well, if you want to prove, this is what they done to the Jews, Ben Amin's group that went to Israel. They said, well, if you want to prove that you're a Jew, you have to trace your lineage back to your mother's side. And they know that's damn impossible because they destroyed all of the damn slaves' records. You see what I'm saying? Check out how damn hypocritical that is. They know that people don't have those records. That's what they was telling the ancient Israelites after they enslaved them. Because many of them came out and say, hey, man, we're Israelites. They said, well, you got to prove it through your mother's seed line. They don't have the records. They purposely destroyed those. See, that's what a deceitful person does. But let's prove that the seed doesn't even come from the mother, Kahan Darak. It comes from the man. So from there, let's Leviticus chapter 15, verse 16 through 18. It comes from the seed of the father.
So this is the book of Leviticus, chapter 15, verse 16 through 18. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him.
That's talking about your sperm so that you could understand. You know.
And he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until the even.
Read on.
Verse 17, and every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation.
Stop for a second, Art. So this is why it's important for you newbies to attend every single Bible study, because you don't know these laws. You should be apt to study this stuff because you don't know these laws, and every time you break one of these laws, you're sinning. You're sinning. So you're gonna have sex with Shanae, and you just get up and you're gonna walk around. You're considered to be unclean. You're supposed to wash the damn bed sheet and everything if your seed got on that bed sheet. Understand that. There's 613 laws. Which one did you break today? Read on.
So from the top of verse 17, and every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water and be unclean until the even.
See that?
Verse 18, the woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves, Salakia, they shall both bathe themselves in water and be unclean until the even.
You see that? Now you're supposed to just get up like these modern people do and just walk around smelling like damn sour sausage. See, the scriptures gave us specific laws, statutes, and commandments that we're supposed to abide by.
Gone.
Okay. From there, let's get someone get me the book of Genesis 11, verse 10. So the seed, the sperm comes from the man. That's that man's seed. So from the beginning, all Israelites was of a Negro descent, not Latino, not Hispanic, not Asian. So again, I'm asking all of the Israelite camps out there that's pushing this, the House of David, ISUPK, IUIC, GOCC, all of you out there that's pushing this, at what point did these so-called Hispanics come in? At what point did Israel start allowing the mixed seed in and it was lawful? Just because certain Israelites had sex with these people, it didn't make it lawful. It was forbidden. They was breaking the law. Now, we're dealing with the table of nations, right? We know for a fact that Shem was a so-called black man, a Negro, if you will, because he was born in Africa. And so when you're dealing with antiquity, he had to be a so-called black man because there was no whites on the earth at this particular time. I challenge any so-called white scholar, any so-called Israelite scholar, or anyone to prove that statement that I just said wrong. You can't, because it's factual. Let's get the book of Genesis 11, verse 10, prove all things.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 10. Are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begot Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Verse 11. And Shem.
Yeah. No, I think that's it that I wanted right there. I just wanted to show you where Shem came from. Now jump down to verse 27. We're going to deal with Abraham's father and then Abram.
Genesis 11:27. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot.
Okay, stop right there. So therefore, Abraham, Lot, and all of these men are black Negro Israelites as they was born in Africa, the cradle of civilization. So no so-called Hispanics, no so-called Native Americans or whites are in the world yet. Big facts, big facts. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob, who was the father of Israel. Now, if there's no white people right here mingling, where does the Hispanics come in at? You understand? From which, from Jacob came the 12 tribes of Israel. And they was all so-called black men that had sex with black women. Jacob's wife was a Hispanic. Moses was raised, and so what I'm showing you is that all of the people at this time was black. There was Negroes. The 12 tribes of Israel started out as all Negroes. At which point are you trying to suggest that they became Hispanics? That these damn northern tribes became Hispanics? That's not in the scriptures, man. That's a made-up doctrine. It's a false doctrine. Moses was raised as a so-called black Egyptian among African people. If he was a so-called white man or a so-called mestizo, Latino with straight hair, he would have not passed for the Pharaoh's grandson for 40 years in Egypt amongst black Africans. Stop me where I'm lying at. Is that right, Honduras? There's no way. There's no
That's
way.
all right.
Let's get the book of, let's prove it, man. Let's get the book of Exodus, the 2nd chapter, and start reading at verse 9.
Book of Exodus, chapter 2, verse 9. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages.
This child that they're talking about is Moses, a black Israelite. Read on.
And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son.
Now, how in the hell, if Israelites was white or Hispanic, how in the hell, he's going to pass for them Africans woman's son amongst black Africans? You explain that one to me, man. Okay, read on up.
And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. Okay, stop.
That's it right there. So these modern day camps are obviously misleading people. GOCC, IUIC, ISUPK, Sakari, etc. They all have men in their camps that are not Israelites unless they could prove that they're Negroids and they could trace it back to their father, their grandfather. If not, you're not an Israelite. See, these people out here on YouTube making videos to get hits. They're online, but we're on the front line. T-Doc's on the front line telling the truth. Just like Hamashiach Yahweh Shah. You understand? We're on the front line telling the truth, man. We're not going to tell no lies. Now, Israelites lived in Africa, right? But our DNA traces back to Israelites, not to Africans. People that's real Israelites. Our DNA makeup is different from those people, man. The Lord made it plain when he said, someone give me the book of Exodus 11:7. We're not the same as the Africans. Although we grew up in the land of Canaan because Joshua took that land from them. You understand? There was a commandment of the Most High. We took the land of Canaan and named it Israel. But that was the land of the Africans.
Khan, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verse 7.
No, Exodus 11 and 7.
Salakia, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 11, verse 7. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel.
No, we're the same. They said we're the same because of our black skin. We must be the same kin.
The Lord doth put a difference between Egyptians and Israel.
That's why DNA don't match up, man. The Most High knew what he was doing, man. You might be in my same skin, but you're not my kin. Understand that. So you so-called elders out there that's pushing this doctrine about these Latinos and Hispanics being Israelites if they're not of a Negro descent, you're hypocrites, man. You're hypocrites, and you're going to be exposed, man. You're going to be exposed. This is how it's work, man. We're going to tell the truth, man. These people that's actually referring to themselves as, Latinos and Hispanics and Native Americans, they claim to always be of the northern tribe, right? They claim to always be of the northern tribe. None of these people are Israelites unless they have a Negro father or a Negro grandfather and so on and so forth. So many of you so damn weak. One of you damn hypocrites, or maybe a few of you, you flagged my video because you could not intelligently dispute it. You could not intelligently disprove it. So like the damn cowards you are, you go and flag it, sissy. You understand? And you deemed it as hate speech. Yeah, you hate the truth. That's what it is. You hate the truth. So just like Esau, now, in this day and age, we have a lot of so-called Hispanics that don't want this truth to go forth because they're not really Israelites, man. Not unless you got a Negro father, right? So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to begin by cutting the Sakari camp, that lie that they put out there, that one scripture that you guys told me that they was using, Song of Solomon 4 verse 1. Someone read that. Song of Solomon 4 verse 1. Read it and let's read it slow.
Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 1, and it reads, Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Galilee.
Stop. Now, when you read this, if you don't have a clear understanding of the Hebrew, it sounds like it's talking about this woman has locks in her hair, and that her hair is like the texture of goats. But when you read that in the Hebrew, and that's deceitful as hell for them to try and flip the scriptures like that. You see what I'm saying? Try and they're literally misleading people, right? This is not talking about the texture of this person's hair, first of all. It's talking about them being strong like a herd of goats flowing to Mount Gilead. It's not even alluding to the text of hair. It's alluding to the strength of a goat's hair and the strength of a she-goat as opposed to a damn sheep. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're intentionally trying to mislead our people. So now we're going to get the real translation, the real meaning in its proper context, because they took the damn scripture out of context and they're confusing our people. And that's what these kind of men do, man. It's scoffer. They scoffer. So now read that again and read it slow. We're going to break down it word for word until we get down to the part about the goats.
Khan, Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 1. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair.
Whoa. What? One word. Behold, word for word. The word behold in the Hebrew is hinwa. Hinwa, meaning like someone is expressing a surprise. That's what that word means. Behold, hinwa. Am I right, Kahandara?
That's right.
Yeah. So he's just saying, behold, like, whoop, look, someone startled, right? Okay, read the next one.
Thou art fair.
That just simply means yapa. That could be taken literally. He's speaking figuratively there. Thou art fair, meaning beautiful. That's all that means. Okay, go ahead.
My love.
Okay. Hold on, I'm trying to post this in YouTube at the same time. I'm explaining this. Okay, my love. Rayata. Meaning like a female associate, like someone you're in love with. That's crystal clear. Go ahead.
Behold, thou art fair.
So there it is again. Yapa, saying that they're beautiful. That's all that's saying right there.
Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks.
Okay. Thou doves. Now, this is where it starts to get tricky, right? That word right there is yonim, thou doves. So apparently it's referring to like the warmth of mating. So the word there is yanim, thy doves. When you look it up in the Hebrew. Okay.
Thy hair is as a flock of goats.
Okay. Now this is where they go off and trick our damn people. Want you to think. See, the message that they're trying to tell people is that this is how they're trying to fit these Hispanics in, and these Asians, and these people that's calling themselves Native Americans. They want us to make, they want us to believe that this scripture is saying that it's alluding to their hair being straight like a goat. You see how the book of Revelations 1:14 talks about Christ had hair like lamb's wool. It specifically says that. It specifically is talking about the texture of his hair. But that's not what this scripture is saying right here. You understand? This scripture's right here. Where is he? Thy hair is like, read that again, brother. Where was you at?
Thy hair is as a flock of goats.
Yeah, I didn't hear you get the part about the eyes. Did you read that?
Oh, I'll go back. Yeah. Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks.
Yeah. So they're speaking pretty much figuratively right there, and that Hebrew word is anayah, meaning their eyes. So yeah, that's that could be taken figuratively or literally right there. Go ahead.
Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Galilee.
You skip the part about their locks. The locks was before that about the hair. I'm pretty sure of it. Yeah, so the locks. You good?
Thou has dove's eyes within thy locks.
Okay, stop. That's where the confusion comes in at. See, the way that they read that, and when you read it in the King James Version, you think it's talking about a lock of hair. That's not what that's talking about. When you look it up in the Hebrew, someone Google for me Strong's H6777. This is not talking about hair locks. It's actually literally talking about a veil that locks her hair down. You see what I'm saying? It's not even talking about the damn hair. It's talking about a veil that locks the hair down. When you look that up in Strong's H6777. Someone looking that up?
Khan. It's actually the root word is tazamad, and it's from an unused root meaning to fasten on.
You see that? You see that? It's not even talking about a lock of hair. You see what I'm saying? It just means to lock down, to fasten on. Does everyone see that?
Yeah, then it says a veil, and then it says locks.
Come on.
To fasten on veil.
Yeah, and so now the next word there, he says thy hair. Saret. So, right. This is actually referring to a hair that's actually blistering or something like that, or torse. It's not talking about no damn texture of hair. So we're saying that the hair is blistering, not talking anything about texture. It's talking about the hair is blistering like a flock of she-goats. It's talking about the hair blistering. It means in a muster. So it's not just talking about some goat's hair. It's talking about a group of goats in a muster. It's talking about a group of goats that's in a muster, like a group of she-goats. It's not talking about the texture of a goat's hair. So they're purposely trying to mislead people. Someone get Strong's H5810. They're purposely trying to throw our people off with those scriptures, man. So all the scripture is saying is that the person's hair is strong like a flock of goats. It's not saying a damn thing about straight hair. See, they try and put that in to confuse people to make you think the Israelites had straight hair. That's not what this scripture is saying. Okay, so someone got that? Strong? 58 and 10?
Mr. Lucky, I was looking for it.
Ha'azim, a she-goat. So, I mean, essentially, all the scripture is saying is that the person's hair is strong like a flock of goats, not straight like goats. It's mentioned nothing about the texture of the hair, guys.
Yeah, it's Strong's 58 and 10. Is it Azaz? And it means to be strong.
Right. Con.
It is to be strong. Azaz.
Con. You see what I'm saying? But their intent was to make people think that it's talking about the texture of the goat hair. You see what I'm saying? So they put that in there to make people think that the scripture is saying that, okay, yeah, their hair is straight like a goat hair. You see what I'm saying? But it's not talking about that. It's talking about the hair is strong. You see what I'm saying? Like a herd of goats. Totally taken out of context, man. Totally taken out of context. So now, the next so-called thing is that I want to say again is that the Latinos and Hispanics are not a nationality. That has nothing to do with genealogy. Again, Latino came from the Edomites that conquered those people. They raped the women, and then they produced an admixture of people, and they called them Latinos, which came from that language, Latin. And then the term Hispanics came from the Spaniards that conquered them and named them after that. And you understand? That's what it comes from. That's not a nationality. Now, what they like to do, a lot of these people that is so-called Latino and mestizos and so on and so forth, they like refer to themselves as the tribe of Joseph, or one of the northern tribes, right? And they try and make you think that all of the northern tribes are so-called Latinos, right? Now, how in the hell could they be from the tribe of Joseph, the northern tribe? And so the problem with that is Joseph was a so-called black man with nappy hair, not straight hair. So, you know, how do we prove this fact? Because he was born in Africa. You understand? He was born in Africa. So let's get the book of Joshua 14, verse 4. Someone get that. Joshua 14 and 4.
This is Joshua chapter 14, verse 4. For the children of Joseph were two tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim.
Okay, these are the people they call so-called modern-day Puerto Ricans. Now, you know a lot of these Puerto Ricans look almost straight up white, like J-Lo. Manasseh and Ephraim, right? So, now, finish that out, brother, because they didn't get any part of the Levites in the land.
I'm going to read from the top. The book of Joshua, chapter 14, verse 4. For the children of Joseph were two tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. Therefore, they gave no part unto the Levites in the land, save cities to dwell in, with their suburbs for their cattle and for their substance.
Con. And so we know that these people are not no damn Latinos or Hispanics at this time, because they didn't even exist at this time. There was no such thing as a so-called Latino race at this time. So there had to be so-called Negroes. You understand? Latinos came damn near 1,000 years later when the mixing took place with the so-called Asians and the whites, which are really Moabites and Edomites, and they mixed in with the Israelites. So in the biblical narrative, Joseph was sold into slavery, stop me where I'm lying at, by his jealous brothers, and rose to become a vizier, which is actually the second most powerful man in Egypt, next to Pharaoh. Now, if Joseph was the so-called damn Latino, when his brothers that sold him into slavery to the damn Arabs, he was in Egypt, when his brothers went there, when there was a famine in the land of Israel, why didn't his brothers recognize Joseph if he had straight hair? You understand? He would have been easily to discover amongst Egyptians. Is that right, Kahan Dara? It would have been easy to discover him amongst Negro Egyptians. You understand what I'm saying? Because he would have had straight hair like these modern day Latinos, right?
He would have
a Negroid descent. You see what I'm saying? Let's get the book of Genesis 37, verse 23. Genesis 37 and 23.
Book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 23.
Go on.
And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him.
Read on.
And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it.
Read on.
And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content.
Come on, read on.
Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt.
Con. So the tribe of Joseph is one of the tribes of Israel in the biblical tradition, right? Now, since Ephraim and Manasseh together traditionally constituted the tribe of Joseph, it was often not listed as one of the tribes. You see what I'm saying? This is why you don't see it on the charts and all of that, because Ephraim and Manasseh constitutes Joseph. So you usually don't see anything that says the tribe of Joseph. You see what I'm saying? So now, with that being said, the northern tribe are Negroes also. How else would Joseph's brothers not recognize him once he was sold into Egypt? And when they came into the land of Egypt during the famine, Joseph recognized them, but they didn't recognize Joseph. And so there's several reasons, because from that time span, first of all, 20 years has passed since his brothers has actually seen Joseph's face. When they sold Joseph into Egypt, Joseph was actually only 17 years old. Let's prove that. Let's get the book of Genesis 37 and 2. Now, if Joseph was a so-called Latino with straight hair, why? How come his brothers couldn't? Hey, that's Joseph right there. You sitting here among these damn black Egyptians, and you know, someone comes along that looks like a lot of these Israelites that you see out there in these camps. You would look like a damn a damn snowman, and the monks
Negroes. Book of Genesis chapter 37 verse 2. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bela.
Okay, you see that? So he was 17 when they sold him into captivity. From there, let's get Genesis 42, verse 7. Now, let's see if his brothers recognize him. If he was a so-called Latino, or a so-called white man, or anyone of admixture, it would have been easy to recognize this man amongst black Egyptians. Why didn't they recognize him? Because he was black. The tribes of Joseph, the tribe of Ephraim was Negroids, as was the tribe of Manasseh, as was all the other Israelite tribes. They was of a Negroid descent. And if you're not of a Negroid descent, you're not an Israelite.
Book of Genesis, chapter 42, verse 7.
Come on.
And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him.
Yeah, see, they didn't even recognize it. Now, if he was a so-called, like a lot of these camps are teaching, if he was a so-called Hispanic, they would have recognized Joseph right away. How come they didn't recognize it? So at this time, the Israelites were all of a Negroid descent, not Latino, not so-called Hispanics, and not a so-called Native American of Asian descent. From there, let's get the book of Genesis 37 and 20, Salakia 36 and 27. He had two sons. He had two sons. Was his sons Hispanic, Kahan Dara? Was his sons Hispanic, Yeshaya? How in the hell could there be Hispanic when his two sons was born of damn Egyptian women? See, someone's been lying to you guys, man.
Khan.
Someone's been lying to you. All of these Israelites was of Negroid descent, and we've proven it with scriptures. Get Genesis 36 and 27.
Genesis chapter 36, verse 27. And it reads, And these are the children of Esau are these, Bilhan, Zavan, and Akan. The children of Dishan are these. You have Viz and Aaron.
What scripture are you reading?
Genesis 36, verse 27. I stopped at 28.
Are you sure you're reading Genesis 26 and 37? Let me have a look at this, man.
You said 37?
That was Genesis 36.
Genesis 36 and 27.
Genesis 36 and 27, yes.
Let me see. It's not what I was actually looking for there. Give me a second. 46
what precept?
46 and 27. Genesis 46 and 27.
Con 46 and 27. And it reads, and the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls, and the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face to Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father, to Goshen, and presented himself unto him.
So these 2 sons that was actually born of him was born from a so-called Egyptian woman, so they had to be black. He was black, they was black, so they had to be black. So when the famine got really bad, Jacob and the 70 souls walked into Egypt. Get Exodus 1 and 15. These was all black people. At this time, they're all black people. So I want to know when these northern tribes became so-called Hispanics and Asians, Native Americans. Because what we're reading, they're also called black people. Let's get Exodus 1 and 5.
Book of Exodus, chapter 1, verse 5. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation.
Yeah, that's it on that. From there. Okay. So Jacob and the 70 souls walked into Egypt. Now, when they came out of Egypt, they did some mixing in Egypt, but there was mixing with Hamites. So at this time, the Israelites were still all of Negroid descent, but they had mixed with Hamites, but they ended up putting these people away. So they came out of Egypt in a mixed multitude. Let's get the book of Exodus 12 and 37. They came out 600,000 strong in men, and it was more women and children than that. So they came out with at least 1 million people.
Book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 37. And it reads, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children.
Stop for a second. So the 600,000 was actually men only. These was military age men. And so besides that, there was women and children. Go ahead, read.
And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks.
So now there was a mixed multitude that went with them. So now they had Hamites that was actually attached on to them. And many of these Hamites, they didn't take on our lifestyles. And this is why the Most High don't want us to marry and date out of our nation. Now, my point being, you see at this point, there is no so-called Hispanics or so-called Latinos or so-called Native Americans of an Asian descent anywhere in the midst of Israel. This happened hundreds of years later.
Still can't find them on the scene.
Okay, now these people that are mestizos are saying that they're the northern tribes. You know, we find out that Joseph's children were of a Negro descent. Get Genesis 46, verse 20. His children were so-called Negroes. So how did they become Hispanics today? How did they become Puerto Ricans today, Kahan Dara? They say Ephraim is the so-called Puerto Ricans. You understand?
That's right.
How did Manasseh become with straight hair? How did Ephraim become with straight hair when Joseph fathered so-called Negro children? Go ahead, read.
This is the book of Genesis, chapter 46, verse 20. And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar,
That's an Egyptian, man. You see what I'm saying? How in the hell you get straight hair from this Egyptian woman, man, unless they was albinos? And the Bible don't leave no damn room for speculation. When the Most High wants something known, he makes it known.
That's right.
Go ahead, man. Salaki, man.
It's all right. Which it says
it kills that lie, man. It destroys it.
It says from the top, it says, and unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him.
Yeah, and so how in the hell now today you got Ephraimites in these camps that's almost white as a damn snowman. Talking about I'm an Israelite. How's that possible, man?
They must be of a mixed tribe.
Well, and so that can be true, but they have to have a father that is of a Negroid
descent. Exactly.
That's all I've been saying, man. That's all I've been saying. Come clean. Come clean, man. So we see here that the Ephraimites were so-called Negroes as well as Manasseh. We see what's going on here, man. So now the people of Israel, they lived in Egypt 430 years, according to the book of Exodus 12 and 40. Now the Israelite left Egypt with Africans. And this is clear, not with so-called whites, not with so-called Asians. So there's no straight hair, and there's nothing in the scriptures saying about, hey, they married any albinos or anything here, right? So at this point on the face of the earth, you have what's referred to as so-called Negroes. You understand? They left in a mixed multitude with these Hamites. Now, for you Israelites that want to call, well, yeah, they left because a lot of these Israelites will say, well, yeah, they left with a mixed multitude amongst strangers. And so they mixed their seed in. Because there's a lot of Israelites, I'm going to hit you something. There's a lot of Israelites that's trying to say we can't determine ourselves from Africans because we mixed them with it. So you got those kind of Israelites out there also.
Yeah, that's a straight up lie.
Yeah, they're trying to mix us, they're trying to make us ham, right? But here's the thing. The children of Israel, if you know anything about biblical history, was a tribal base. And you can't convert to being an Israelite. You got to be born an Israelite. Even after the Babylonian exile, that strangers amongst us was not allowed to become Israelites. You understand what I'm saying? They could live alongside of us and so on and so forth, but there was no damn conversions. You see what I'm saying? And so the closest thing that anyone could actually do with an Israelite was to stay with the Israelites and to live like the Israelites and become circumcised, but they were not members of a tribe or a clan. They were a group of what they refer to as Gurim, who actually lived alongside the Israelites. They never became Israelites. And in fact, the mixed multitude became our slaves. These Africans that left, they became our slaves. We wandered in Egypt, in the wilderness after we left Egypt, and we put these Africans as our slaves. Let's get the book of Leviticus 25, verse 40.
Khan, this is the book of Leviticus, chapter 25, verse 40. But as an hired servant and as a sojourner, he shall be with thee and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee.
Stop. Now, what this is talking about, another Israelite that comes and work for you as a hired servant. He can work for you for 7 years. Then he goes. Read on.
Verse 41, and then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his fathers shall he return.
Come.
Verse 42, for they are my servants which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. they shall not be sold as bondmen.
So you couldn't sell another Israelite as a slave. Understand that. You know.
Verse 43, thou shalt not rule over him with rigor.
You can't rule over your brother with rigor. Read on.
But shall fear thy power.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 44, both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids.
Now, both these slave men and these slave women, these are the Egyptians that came out with you. That mixed multitude, read on.
Which thou shalt have shall be of the heathen.
See that? That's the Hamites. That's these other nations. Those are the ones that be your slaves. Read on.
That are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids.
So you could buy them as slaves. That's crystal clear right there. Read on.
Verse 45, moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you.
See, they were sojourning with us when we came out of Egypt, these Hamites. But look at what the Lord told us to do with them. Read.
Of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land, and they shall be your possession.
They shall be your slaves. Read on.
Verse 46, and ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you.
You see that? Read on.
To inherit them for a possession.
See that?
They shall be your bondmen forever.
See that? You couldn't do that to your Israelite brothers. You see what I'm saying? This is what happened to the strangers that dwelt amongst us, man. Read. That's what he's thinking about your brothers.
But over your brethren, the children of Israel, ye shall not rule one over another.
That's crystal clear. That's crystal clear. That shows you how we dealt with that mixed multitude, man. They came out of Egypt. So that's what it is, man. And so the Most High, furthermore, the Most High never wanted us to mix with the heathen. Just because Israelites did it, it didn't make it right. And everyone that did it was breaking the law. You understand? We wasn't supposed to lay with these men and women of the other nations. The women wasn't supposed to lay with the men, and now men wasn't supposed to lay with their women. Now, what happened when this mixed multitude left Egypt, there was an Israelite woman that had went against the law, and she had a damn son by an Egyptian man, by an African man, and he blasphemed the name of the Most High. Read that. Let's get that. The book of Leviticus 24, verse 10 through 11. And they put his ass to death. The Most High told Moses to take him before the congregation and put his ass to death.
This is the book of Leviticus, chapter 24, verse 10 through 11. And the son of an Israelitish woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel. And this son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp.
See that? He wasn't even an Israelite because his dad was a damn Hamite. So he got in a fight with an Israelite man. You see what I'm saying? Read.
Verse 11, and the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord.
See that?
And cursed. And they
that's what these nations do, man. That's what these nations do. That's what the Most High said, don't dwell amongst them. Go ahead, read up.
And they brought him unto Moses, and his mother's name was Shalomith, the daughter of Debri of the tribe of Dan. Verse 12. Want me to keep reading on, Kahan?
Yeah, keep reading.
Verse 12. And they put him in ward that the mind of the Lord might be shewed them. Verse 13. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, bring forth him that hath cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head.
Lay hands on him.
And let all the congregation stone him.
See that? They put him to death, man. They stoned him for blaspheming the name of the Most High, man. They put him to death.
And verse 15, and thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, whosoever curseth his God shall bear his sin. Verse 16.
Yeah, let's sit on that. Let's sit on that. So the mixed multitude you know, we wasn't supposed to be mixing with them in the first place. So, first of all, so-called Hispanics, Israelites were not supposed to be mixing with you anyways, man. So again, unless you could trace your genealogy back to your father's Y chromosome, then you're not of this fold, man. You're not an Israelite. Now, let me talk about the priest Ezra for a minute. The priest Ezra, he was a priest, he was a scribe, and he was a lawyer. So Ezra had this to say. Let's get the book up because they was mixing and Ezra condemned them for it. Ezra had this to say in the book of Ezra, chapter 9, verse 1. Let's read that.
This is the book of Ezra, chapter 9, verse 1. Now, when these things were done, the princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations.
See that? Even, we wasn't supposed to mix with these people of the land. Hope everyone sees that. You know.
Even of the Canaanites, the Hittites,
see that?
The Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites.
See that? You know.
Verse 2, for they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people.
That's important right there. So the Lord said that the set apart seed, he's letting you know that an Israelite's man's sperm is set apart. He said that the set apart seed had mingled themselves, read?
Have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers have been chief in this trespass.
See that? So the rulers of the Israelites was allowing this thing to go down. This was breaking the Deuteronomic code, the Deuteronomic law. Jumped on to verse 10.
Verse 10, and now, O our God, what shall we say after this? For we have forsaken thy commandments.
How have they forsaken the commandments? They done interracial dating. According to the Bible, the Most High is against interracial dating, not according to Tazadaq. So with that being said, why these northern tribes saying that they're of our fold when the Most High would be against this? The Most High is against interracial dating. So how do these northern tribes become Latinos and Hispanic when it goes against the Most High's laws?
Salakia Kahan.
Yeah.
Would that indicate genetic variation, what we just read? Is it safe to say?
Yeah, as far as what do you mean?
As far as the race, because there's a reason why the Most High told us not to mix with these people. They are of a different stock than we are.
Come on.
So that, to me, that indicates some type of genetic variation, even on that level, dealing with genetics.
Come on. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, with that being said, man, the question comes back is how do so-called Latinos and Hispanics with straight hair become involved in the tribes when they wasn't in it back here?
That's right.
And the laws was against any kind of interracial dating. But read on. We're gonna get some more of this. We're gonna get to the bottom of this, man.
Okay, I was at verse 3. So this is the book of Ezra, chapter 9, reading at verse 3. And
no, we was at you was reading on verse 10.
Salakia, verse 10, Salakia. Verse 10. So starting at verse 11, it says, or I'll read from verse 10. It says, and now, O our power, what shall we say after this? For we have forsaken thy commandments. Verse 11, which thou hast commanded by thy servants, the prophets, saying, the land unto which ye go to possess it.
What is he talking about? He's talking about Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter right there. Read on.
Is an unclean land with the filthiness of the people of the lands, with their abominations. which have filled it from one end to another with their uncleanness.
Read.
Verse 12, now therefore give not your daughters unto their sons, neither take their daughters unto your Salakia. Now therefore give not your daughters unto their sons, neither take their daughters unto your sons, nor seek their peace or their wealth forever.
See that? We wasn't ever supposed to mix. So how do you justify these northern tribes calling themselves, you know, these Latinos that's not of Negroid, even if they're Negroid descent? Even when the Israelite man went out there and mixed, he violated the commandments, man. He violated the commandments, the curses are coming. He mixed the holy seed, as it says in verse 2. Finish that out, huh?
That ye may be strong.
See that?
And eat the good of the land, and leave it for an inheritance to your children forever.
See that? This is why we're in that conditions, man. We broke the damn laws. Verse 13.
Verse 13. And after all that has come upon us for our evil deeds.
See, they call that evil. They call that thing evil, man. Interracially mixing.
And for our great trespass.
It was a great trespass.
Seeing that thou, our God, hast punished us less than our iniquities deserve, and has given us such deliverance as this.
Everyone see that? You see that, Captain Benanah? Get Ezra chapter 10, verse 3. You see that? La Alawan? That's supposed to be mixing, man. That's against scripture, man. Genesis 10 and 3.
Yeah, Genesis 10 and 3 or Ezra 10 and 3?
Book of Genesis.
So like it. Ezra 10 and 3.
Okay, yeah.
The book of Ezra, chapter 10, verse 3. Now, therefore, let us make a covenant with our God.
Let us make a contract with the Most High. Let us make a contract with the Most High. Read on.
To put away all the wives.
And do what?
To put away all the wives.
This is what Ezra told them they had to do, to put away these wives. So even if you are involved with these people, what I'm saying, and this is towards the end of the Old Testament, you see what I'm saying? So all of the Israelites that had mixed, Ezra came in, and the priest Nehemiah came in and said, man, you got to divorce all of these women and put away the children that was born of it. Okay.
And such as are born of them.
See, that's talking about their children. So they not only had to put the women away, they had to give up their children also. You understand? Yeah, they had to give up the children anyways. And the prophecy in the book of Isaiah says that the Most High is going to separate you from them in the last days anyways. Therefore, sir, every man returning to his own land. Read on.
According to the counsel of my Lord and of those that tremble at the commandment of our power.
Everybody see that? You see that? Allah, you see that?
Khan, I see it.
You're gonna have to get rid of your Japanese cutie then, man.
No Ammonites over here.
You're gonna have to get off your Wesley Snipes grind, man. Hey, let's jump down from there. That's what Wesley Snipes says. Hey, I gotta have me a Japanese woman. They're quiet and peaceful. Okay. From there, let's go from there. Ezra, verse 10.
Okay, this is the book of Ezra, chapter 10, verse 10. And Ezra the priest stood up and said unto them, ye have transgressed and have taken strange wives.
Strange wives, meaning women of other nations. Strange wives. You know,
to increase the trespass of Israel. Verse 11. Now therefore make confession unto Yahweh, power of your fathers, and do his pleasure, and separate yourselves from the people of the land.
So this was the pleasure of the Most High to separate from these people, man. The Lord hate that thing. And they want to cover this up, man. They don't want you to know that the Most High deals with people like this, man. Read.
And from the strange wives.
See that? Verse 12, then all the congregation answered.
Verse 12, then all the congregation answered and said with a loud voice, as thou hast said, so must we do.
See, this is towards the end of the Old Testament. So the Israelites put away all these women and children. So towards the end of the Old Testament, I don't see where the tribe of Ephraim comes in here. Show me that with scripture. Show me that with scripture right now, Yeshaya. Show me with scripture where Ephraim becomes the modern day Puerto Rican. Show me that. That's what they're teaching in these camps. With straight hair. I can't see it.
Looking like a case of identity theft.
I can't see it, man. I can't see it. These men were all of Negro descent. Yeah, they mixed in. But Ezra made them put them away. And now we're dealing with around 400 BCE, around 420, 400 BCE, if you know anything about biblical timelines. From there. Finish that out. Jump down all the way down to the bottom. Verse 44. Ezra 10 and 44.
Khan, this is the book of Ezra, chapter 10, verse 44. All these had taken strange wives, and some of them had wives by whom they had children.
And Ezra made them put them all away. Same thing happened with Nehemiah, man. So when we look towards the end of the Old Testament, they got rid of these intermixing. From there, let's go to the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 3.
This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 3. Now it came to pass when they had heard the law.
The law, the law. Okay?
That they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude.
See that? All those Egyptians that came out, Israelites had to separate from them. They had forgotten the law, man. Remember when they was in the captivity under Babylon, and then when Darius allowed them to go back, they wasn't keeping the laws anymore, man. They had forgotten the law. Then the priest Ezra returned and say, man, this is the law, man. Ezra was a scribe, which means he wrote things down, and he was a priest, and he was a lawyer. So he said, this is what the Most High says. And Ezra went back there and he recited the whole book, the Torah to him, the 5 books of Moses. So that's how they knew how to go back under the law. Okay, read up.
Verse 4. And before this.
Now jump down to verse 24. All the way down to verse 20. Actually, verse 23.
Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 23. In those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod.
See that? See that? Israelites marrying these people to other nations. Read on.
Of Ammon. See
that? So-called Japanese. They got on their Wesley Snipes. Read.
And of Moab.
Yeah, and so-called Chinese. See, Israelites marrying all these. Now you wonder how, they got these people up there calling themselves Israelites. But I'm hit you something. Nehemiah made them to put them away also. Read.
And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language.
Just like you today, man. You don't speak the Hebrew. We're in captivity. We speak in English. We don't even speak our own language. This is forbidden. This is why the Most High said, do not mix with the nations. They would turn you away from following me. So why are these mixed camps out here? Read.
But according to the language of each people. Verse 25. And I contended with them and cursed them.
See that? He beat the hell out of a couple of them. He smoked them. Okay.
And smote certain of them and plucked off their hair.
He pulled their damn hair out. He went crazy, man. You know what I mean? The priest Nehemiah went crazy on him, man. He went buck wild, man. He went buck wild on him, man, like a pit bull. And you know when a pit bull bite down and lock in, that's a wrap. He said he plucked their hair out, man. Go ahead, read.
And made them swear by God, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons.
See, this thing was very serious, man. Our people take this very lightly nowadays because you don't know the laws. You get cursed for this kind of stuff right here, man. Read.
Or for yourselves. Verse 26. Did not Solomon, king of...
Did not who?
Solomon, king of Israel.
That's what Solomon done in 1 Kings 11, verse 1, 2, 3. He took these strange women. Read.
Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things?
See that?
Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin.
See that? They cause him to sin. And that's what these women will cause you to sin. They would turn you away from the Most High. I know, baby. I had wanted to go here. And you wonder why she's not interested in the scriptures. You wonder why she's trying to get you to do a damn threesome with a girlfriend. She's of the other nations, man. The Spirit of the Lord is not on her. Jump down to verse, you read on 27.
Verse 27, shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our God in marrying strange wives?
You see that? Read.
Verse 28, and one of the sons of Joada, the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat, the Horonite. Therefore I chased him from me. Verse 29, remember them, oh my God, because they have defiled the priesthood.
So you have priests out there doing that also. You see what I'm saying?
And the covenant of the priesthood and of the Levites. Verse 30, thus cleansed I them from all strangers.
See that?
And
appointed, he made them get rid of all of them.
And appointed the wards of the priests and the Levites, every one in his business. Verse 31, and the wood offering at times appointed, and for the first fruits, remember me, O my power, for good.
From there, let's get Nehemiah 9 and 2. Book of Nehemiah, chapter 9, verse 2.
This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 9, verse 2. And the seed of Israel separated themselves from all strangers.
See that? And this is towards the end of the Old Testament. Read.
And stood and confessed their sins and the iniquities of their fathers.
See that? So it was a sin to interracially date, man, to go outside of your nation. Now today, you do it like it's nothing. Now, at the time of King Solomon's death, and so far, besides this mixed multitude, and Ezra made them put them away. Now, at the time of King Solomon's death, the nation of Israel divided into two different nations. The 10 tribes became known as the Northern Kingdom. This is what these Latinos and Hispanics are trying to say that they're, but I can't see any biblical evidence of that. And the Northern tribe, that's the Northern tribe, and the Southern tribe, they retained the name Judah. Now, prior to the separation, the nation of Israel had existed as a nation for 200 years. But then a split occurred, and the nation was actually on the verge of a civil war. The Southern Kingdom, it became known as Judah, and the Northern Kingdom retained the name Israel. And so finally what happened, the Babylonians came in and they overthrew Judah. But prior to the Babylonians coming in, the Northern tribe was actually taken over They was actually conquered. They well, basically they went away from the truth first. The southern kingdom stayed in the truth a little longer than the northern tribe. And so this northern tribe, you know, they actually got overthrown by the Assyrians. They conquered them around 722 BC. And then about 135 years later, the Babylonians came to power. And they conquered the southern kingdom. And they carried them away as captives into Babylon. And so, you know, the Persians, King Cyrus, he eventually overthrew the Babylonians. Then he took over. They became a world empire, the Medo-Persians. And so after the Persians, then came in the Greeks. Around the time of the Greeks, now you're talking about around, now before the Greeks came in, when Darius, should I say Cyrus, the king of Persia, he allowed the Israelites to go back to Judah and start rebuilding the temple. This is when these people started going astray, and that's when Ezra came in after them and told them to put away these wives. So they started rebuilding the temple from around 516 to 444 BC. Then the Greeks came in around 332 BC. And then finally, the Romans came in around 68 BC. And then the Romans literally put an end to the Judean state in 70 AD. The temple was destroyed for a second time. And then the Israelites were slaughtered and taken into captivity. And many fled and dispersed all over the world. Now, at this point, at this particular time, the highest concentration of Israelites had actually been in Africa and Asia. But when the Roman era came to power, they began to slowly, the Israelites began to slowly move into Europe. Many of them was actually transported into Rome as slaves into the city of Rome. But many Israelites migrated to Rome and to other cities in Europe. And they built Israelite communities. They built synagogues. And they even had white servants. And so this is the period right here, after 70 AD, that the Israelites started mixing with these Edomites. And then they started producing these people that's calling themselves Puerto Ricans. And, you know, all of these people with the straight hair. That's when they start producing them, around this time frame. Because now the Israelites that was taken into Roman captivity and the ones that have moved into Rome, they started mating with these Edomites, and they started mating with a lot of these Asians. You understand? This is when the mixed tribes come in. This is the real history on it, right? And so the Israelites, they built their communities, they built synagogues, and so on and so forth. And then a lot of these Edomites converted to the way of Israelites' life. They intermarried with the Israelites. And so a lot of these people that's calling themselves Ephraim, Manasseh, you're nothing but Edomites, man. Unless you could trace your descendancy back to an Israelite father, you're nothing but an Edomite. Because once we got into Rome and Europe in general, the Israelites started becoming lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. You understand? So after 100 years in Europe, the Israelites became lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And so they mixed their seed in with the people that's now called Europeans. And they had practically no contact with the Israelites and Jews that was actually in Africa and in Asia. They spoke a new language called Yiddish. You understand? They begin to straighten their hair and they start to call themselves Jewish people. In fact, that's who they had actually mixed in with. they mixed in with these so-called European people. They had practically no contact with their motherland, Israel. And so they spoke a new language, and they called it Yiddish, which is actually a German dialect, written with Hebrew letters, but containing elements of Russian, Hebrew, Polish, and other languages. They tell you that it's Hebrew today. It's not Hebrew. It's Yiddish. And what they did is they developed a completely new culture known as the Yiddish culture. You understand? They model it after the European way of life. And at the same time, these mestizos that's telling you that they're Israelites, they mixed in amongst us also. Remember, these people are descendants of Edomites and of Asians. So when white supremacy developed in Europe around the 16th century, the Jewish start in life began to be flavored with evidence of white supremacy as well. So, and this became evident because this is when they start putting white biblical preachers in the Bible, and they start straightening their hair. And many of them was mixed in, so they had straight hair.
Whitewashing.
And they used different pronunciations in Hebrew. And their religious services changed utterly. It changed utterly compared to those Israelites that had actually came out of Africa, where the land of Israel is located. They adopted European names, Wiseman, Zuckerberg, and so on and so forth. And then the Israelites removed themselves so far from Africa, so far from the land of Israel, their homeland, and as a result, they began to think like these Europeans. They begin to think like these European people that's now referring to themselves as Jews. And now they had a new skin that they refer to as white. And from then, they became known as Ashkenazi, or German Jews. What most people don't know is most Ashkenazi Jews are found in Europe, in Australia, and racist South Africa, also in Canada and the United States. Now, as the 12th century arrived, these Jewish institutions in Europe, they started perpetrating the concept that the biblical Israelites were always white. This is when the lies started. This is when the lies started. This is when racism really took its full scope. They started perpetrating this to the point of forgetting that the Israelites were ever black. You understand? The Israelites was not black or Latino, man. I mean, not Hispanic or Latino. They were so-called black people. They was not white. And so then you started to see certain words like Sephardi. Sephardi means Spanish. It essentially refers to an African Israelite who lived in Portugal or Spain. You understand? When Moors literally ruled Spain for 700 years. It's referring to those Israelites that was there. Sephardi. And so the name began to take different contexts. They started referring to Israelites as Orientals. Most of you think they're talking about Asians. They started referring to Israelites as Orientals because they was in the East. And these Europeans was in the West. So in the Eastern culture was different from the Western cultures. So they started referring to them as Orientals. And so the complexions at this particular time, span that I'm talking about, of the Israelites range from jet black to high yellow. So then where did these mestizos come in at? They mixed in during this time frame. And again, if they can't trace their descendancy back to the seed of the father, then they're not Israelites. Now, some of the black Hebrew Israelites at this time frame, They converted to religions such as Islam and amalgamated into these African indigenous tribes, and others was actually transported to America in slave ships. Do you understand? And so in order to really understand the impact that this actually had over the Israelites, you have to understand the attitude of European Jews towards the African Hebrew Israelites. We must therefore scrutinize those past world events. So after the fall of the Roman Empire, around AD 476, Rome slept for about 1,000 years. This is when Israelites ruled Europe for 1,000 years, starting with Severius Septimius. This is the period that Europe calls the Dark Ages. Why do they call it the Dark Ages? Because you had so-called black people ruling. That's why they call it that. And so at this time, Rome practically had no knowledge had actually derived in Rome for 1,000 years. Now, during this same period of times, the Africans and Asians and the Israelites was flourishing intellectually and financially and economically. You understand? They contributed great things to all sciences. But gradually, Rome began, or Europe, should I say, began to be stimulated by the intellectual activities of Africa, Asia, and the Israelites. And so then it takes you to the period of the Renaissance, meaning rebirth. So the rebirth took place around the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th centuries. And so at the past 1,000 years, remember, Rome had actually been asleep. Europe had been asleep. And then when she awoke with extreme racism. This is when she began to colonize Africa and Asia and started mixing her seed in with our women. She began colonizing Africa and Asia and the entire Western Hemisphere. The Europeans knew very little about Africa. This is why they refer to it as the Dark Continent. And so as the Europeans explored Africa and transported African men, women, and children into slavery, Africa came under complete domination of the powers of Europe. And at that time, in 1880, the European powers divided Africa into several different parts. They called that event the Berlin Conference in 1880. And so, like many other Europeans and so-called whites, at this particular time, the so-called Jews began to write books that was filled with racism. And this is how our heritage was destroyed and forgotten. And now it seems in this day and age, you got other people trying to do the same thing to the Israelites. Understand that. Understand that, man. So, hey, Darak, you got anything you want to add?
That sums it up, everything that we went over here.
What about anyone else? You got anything you want to add?
Well, I want to ask about, okay, so about what time did the northern tribe go to the Western Hemisphere?
Nah, they was already there. I mean, so so when you say the northern tribe, you're talking about like the real Israelites. So I mean, when you say northern tribe, you got me thinking, about these people that is actually mixed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So
they got me mixed up, man. My bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Salaki.
No, I mean, so you mean like when people went to like Central South America and things like that?
Cause like, okay, all right. How do I say it? Not the northern tribe, as in northern tribe, Manasseh, Ephraim. They was all still Negroid descent, but like, okay,
Until this
and
period
what
that I'm
kept it?
talking about right now. See this period that I'm talking about right now? This is what your Mexicans, your Puerto Ricans, and so all of these people with the straight hair, they are descendants of blacks and whites and Asians. This is why Mexicans have slanted eyes, a lot of them, right? Because they mixed in remember the original Asians, the Dravidians, were so-called Negroid people. But then, but then Esau, remember, I say he dispersed into Asia and Africa, after the Renaissance. So this is the period that this occurred, right? This is the period that this occurred. Now, remember, you had some Moabites that went down to North America and Central and South America, and they started referring to themselves as Native Americans because when they got there, they found indigenous people there already. Now, you got to keep in mind that King Solomon and David, they had a fleet, they had naval ships, right? So now we're talking about 3,000 years ago, right? So we had actually been coming here, right? And you can read that. What you're talking about, I guess, the Apocrypha will actually answer your question when you read the book. But I mean, you got to keep in mind that Solomon, they had naval ships because the thing that should, that people should actually be asking is that how did the Decalogue stone get in Los Lunas, New Mexico? Because that stone dates back to the time of King Solomon. You see what I'm saying? So you're talking like 3,000 years ago. You see what I'm saying?
That means they had to be going back.
Right. Yeah, and besides that, the paintings on the wall in Mexico and the mounds that's actually all over America, right? Those mound builders was built by Negroes. They trying to call them Native American burial grounds. Those are mounds, same type of mounds that you kind of find in Africa. You see what I'm saying? They call them pyramids in Africa. They call them mounds over here.
Khan.
Hey, Yeshai, you still in the core, or you have to take core? I know you got to go to work soon.
Khan, sir.
Hey, you got that thing about the $5 Indians? Can you read some of that for us?
Yeah. Here we go.
I know a couple $5 Indians.
All right. I pulled it from expert about the $5 Indians. The Dawes Rolls, the making of a $5 Indian history matters. It says during the late 1800s, in an effort to assimilate the Native Americans of the time into white culture, the United States government passed several bills requiring the 5 civilized tribes, Cherokee, Choctaw.
Now keep in mind, this is only 100 and some years ago, because this is in the late 1800s. Go ahead, read.
Creek and Seminole to accept specific land allotments as well as register for what was called the Dawes Rolls. This was supposed to be a way to determine real Indians from fake ones. They set up tents on Indian territory and had their field clerks register natives only using oral testimony and some written records to determine who were real Indians.
See that?
This less than effective screening process allowed white men looking to get their hands on a piece of guaranteed land to strike a deal, paying the commissioner $5 under the table to be placed on the Dawes Rolls. This helped coin the term $5 Indian. At the time, because of their distrust for the United States government, a lot of full-blooded Indians didn't even bother registering on the Dawes rolls, which systematically shut them out from any future benefits. So don't be surprised when you go to your favorite casino, most of which are on Indian reservations, and find one of the owners who say he is part Cherokee. In actuality, he's nothing more than a $5 Indian. That's it on that.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, this is all the way to the you know, pretty much the 1800s, and so you know, this time span is when, you know, a lot, because now when you if you're trying to say you're Native American, they're gonna test your bloodline pretty much based off of Moabites. You see what I'm saying? They you know, and so if your bloodline don't match up with them, what they'll tell you is you're not a Gadite, right? What they're not telling you is they're not basing that bloodline off of the true Gadites. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And
Those
so,
are the ones that came over on the Bering Strait. You're talking about the
right.
Moabites. Okay, so they done switched it all the way around to their bloodline and not the true Gadites bloodline. Man, that's so.
Because that's what they're telling people. That's what they're telling people who the true Native Americans are. The people with the Asian eyes. But those people came out of Asia, and they admit that.
That's what we learned in school. We learned that those were the true Native Americans, but they're not. They're not.
No, they're not. They're not. Because the true Native Americans would be from the tribe of Gad, right? And those people those people are Moabites that came down from what they refer to as Asia, right? And so now remember, there was some mixing already going on before they came down, because at one point that was being referred to as the Eurasian nations. Because remember, I just said, you know, during the period of the Renaissance, that Esau, he started taking over Africa and Asia, and he went in and he mixed his blood in. So now you get all these mixed, you know, you get all these mixed people, and you know, people start like roaming, you know, all over the planet. And so, you know, they come down and, hey, but remember when they first came down, when the Moabites first came down, remember Moab, those were black people. Those was black people. It's not until later that they got mixed, until they start developing the straight hair. You understand? Just like the Davidians, they were black people, but they got their seed mixed in with Esau. And so you have the so-called East Indian, right? The Persians with the straight black hair. You see what I'm talking about? But have really, you know, dark features.
Dark features, yeah.
Yeah, but some of them have really narrow noses because a lot of them are mixed as well. And a lot of that's in this book, Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers, man. I'll show you some of what I'm talking about, man. But yeah, so you know, most of the people that say that they're Israelites are not. They're mixed up, mixed seed.
They're trying to steal the birthright, right? Like the Most High don't know that they're lying.
Well, I mean, you got to give them credit. They've been covering this up for ages. Most people want to accept it, but most people want to believe that the so-called Hispanics that's referring to themselves as Israelites are Israelites when there's no such thing as a Hispanic race. You see what I'm saying? There's no such thing as a Latino race. All that is an admixture. That's a mixture of Edomites, Moabites, and Israelites, or Jakes, if you will. They don't necessarily have to be an Israelite. Some of them could be Hamites. Because remember, the Ottoman Turks, they came into Africa and they mixed in. And so now you get these people over there now that they call it Arabs. But the original Arabs were so-called black people because they came from Ishmael. His father was Abraham, and the so-called African women. So they had to be black. You understand what I'm saying?
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, that's what it really is, man. So I mean, when Esau, remember Rome slept for 1,000 years. And so from the Dark Ages, after the Dark Ages, you're jumping to like 14th, 15th, 16th centuries. This is what is known as the Renaissance. This is when they're taking over everything. This is when they're destroying all the books. This is when they getting rid of all the records, the historical records of the Israelites, and make the world forget that they was actually even black of Negroid descent.
Around the time when Caesar, the Borgias,
yeah, that's right.
And they repainted everything, most definitely. But that with that $5 Indian, man, that's so wicked though. How they did that, like just to make. It seems like they also did it to make sure. I heard them reading the part, but it's like they did it to make sure that the true Gadites didn't get no land. Also, that's how I take it like that too. Allowing just.
Well, I mean, the reason that the true Gadites didn't get any land is because remember, the true Native American Indians was of a Negroid descent. And so the way around that, he didn't read all that article because I actually I had read it and it was pretty long. It tells you a little more than that, or maybe he don't have the same article that I actually read. But remember the true Gadites look just like the Africans that they brought here, or should I say the Israelites that was of African descent that they brought here in slave ships, right? So they couldn't distinguish between
they couldn't tell the difference.
Right. And so what they did is they say any native that looked like a African, we're gonna put them into slavery also. We're just gonna call all of these Negroes.
Yeah. Negroes, yeah, classify them all as Negroes. Okay, now I see. Yeah, okay. So they basically just threw all the Gadites in with slavery, and then it wasn't none to able to be trying to claim the land because they was already in slavery. Then the mixed stock of the Moabites, Edomites, and the Israelite, those is the ones that they want to say is the Native Americans, the so-called red man, which we know who really is the red man. Okay, now I see how they did away with all of it. Okay, now I see.
Yep.
Okay, did you say that the Arawak Indians had they were dark but they had straight hair?
Yeah, I mean, remember a lot of mixing. So when the Asians came down, right? Remember, the Asians, they was initially of a Negroid descent, but Esau went into Asia and he mixed in with them. So the Asians came down, and remember these people was dark. So when they saw us, initially they started mixing in with us because they thought, hey, we're our people, but we weren't. So this is why a lot of the natives have slanted eyes because of the Asians. And then you go to the 15th century. Here come Esau. Here come Esau in 1492.
Yeah, but Christopher Columbus and all of that. Okay, now I understand.
Yeah, and so when they got here, remember they traded in furs and so on and so forth, and they started sleeping with him. What's his name? John Smith. He ended up taking Pocahontas.
John Smith. Oh man, but that wasn't his real last name, was it? Or was it?
Yeah, it was. That's what it was.
Okay.
Remember, these people, they name people based on what they done. So probably he was a blacksmith because that's
blacksmith. Yeah, he was a blacksmith.
That's how.
And John's son would be the son of John, like something like that. That's how they. Okay, most definitely.
Okay.
I got nothing else. I just had to clarify that up. Because I know when I done the research on Aruba, that's the Arawak Indians. They were there, and they were intercontinentally, because Aruba is just like a couple miles from Venezuela, which is South America, and they were trading with the Taino Indians, or they was Saint Martin. They was all dealing with each other anyway.
The Taino,
from what I did my research on.
The Taino, all of that's a mixed stock, man. Those are not pure Indians. Those are mixed. But when you read, if you go into this book, right, This book right here. The first Americans. This right here destroys them. This is why they flagged my video. The first Americans was Africans. It explains that the Taino Indians was a mixed up. Remember, that's what the so-called Puerto Ricans call themselves. They said they're Taino Indians. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. What was that first? The other book, Sex and what?
Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. Volume 1, by the way.
Okay, and I just want to, okay, but the Olmecs.
This brother right here, I know this brother in New York. This is a good book, man. The Black Mexico.
Black Mexico.
Yeah.
But the Olmecs were originally all Negroid descent, the Olmecs?
Yeah, those are the Paleo-Americans.
Okay.
Yo,
yeah, I was trying to
by Michael Woods, In Search of the Dark Ages. Remember I said In the Search of the Dark Ages, who was ruling for 1,000 years? Yep. Now these are the true Native Americans right here. You see how black they are? You see that? Those are the true indigenous Americans. These are the true Indians. Jack Forge, Africans and the Native Americans. See, those are black, man. Those are Negroes.
Con, I'm gonna share.
Jack Forge.
I'm gonna share some of those old pictures. I was trying to get my sisters to send them to me, but my grandmother, she married one of the Olmecs, and he's like he's like a real dark red brown guy, and but he's originally from what they call Mexico, and my grandmother used to talk to me when I was younger, and started, just telling me and warning me how they changed their names from the time when she was younger in the public arena to, as she got older, because they were never like called African American. That's something like Tazadaq has explained, something that they called us back in like the 60s and the 70s. That's something that's made up out the blue to further try to integrate people. So but I was really hoping one of my sisters would send me the picture, but he is unlike any other man that I've ever seen since I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. I've not seen another man that looks like him. I'm gonna upload it here as soon as they send it to me. You're gonna see what they look. It's just like Tazadaq is saying, real rich, almost kind of like a burgundy, but darker.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's on it. All this coincides with the old family history and everything. He is on it.
And who would deceive the nations like this, man? What kind of people would deceive the nations like this, man?
And word devil means deceiver, man. So with that, we could bring this to an end, man. We don't want to hold the Kahan Darak up anymore, man. Ben and I have been talking so much, man. I know he's got to be tired, man. Let's get out of here, man.
Khan.
I'm still here. I'm hanging on.
Now I wanted to deal with the. Can you hear me?
Khan.
Yeah, for these so-called Negroes who go around flagging, we want to challenge them to go to these radical conservatives that still want to make America great again, if it ever was. We want to challenge you to go flag their videos instead of flagging the truth that's going to eventually set the people free.
That's right.
It seems real convenient. It seems very convenient for these Negroes or so-called Negroes. Maybe they may not be Negroes and found out that they wasn't due to these videos of this campaign. But that's all just to purify our nation, man. We just want to challenge y'all to go bang on a beast and stop trying to take the easy route and banging on your brother. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
That's right.
Con.
That right? Where's he at? Where's that right? That right? He's not even in here. That right?
I'm in here.
Oh, there you go. That
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That right? That right? There you go. That right? That's right. Hey, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, it's all good, man.
Hey, if you look at the way Eleazar looks, that's how my grandfather looked. But he was like rich burgundy, real thick beard, all around the South, man. All around the South.
Yeah, man. Man, there's been a tremendous job done on us, man. Not just on us, man, but most of the world, man. Things are not the way that they seem, man.
Yeah, but as people see, man, like the Most High, for a number of reasons, don't want you missing, because you pick up these people customs, you pick up their diseases, their disorders, and all that stuff, man. It really taints our gene pool.
Yeah.
So it's more than just, you know, what the average brother may see, you know, they being racist, being prejudiced. Nah, man, it's about purity, man. You know, we got to purge out this illness through the rapings, through you know, the forced what do you call it? You know, the forced breedings and all these things that we had to undergo as a people. And this is how you do it with right knowledge.
Cool. Hey, so with that, man, I'm gonna say shalom, man. It's getting late over here, man. Hey, Alalawam, are you working tomorrow? Alalawam, are you working tomorrow?
Man, they've been beating, man. They've been playing games, man. I'm not sure. I'm probably not gonna be.
Yeah, I'm just saying because of Kahan, you know, he has to go to court tomorrow. I
told him I come with him, man, you know, to make sure everything all right.
Yeah, I mean, just as a witness, sometimes it's good to have a witness, because then you would actually be able to write a statement or something later if need be.
I told him I'll go with him, so it's still up. It's on him, because I'm, like I told him, Issachar been, you know, my brothers from Issachar, man, they've been playing games, but you know, that's on me for even allowing another man to put money in my pocket. But I got this trailer coming up, hopefully. That way we can go on our own, man, and get this thing rolling. But I told Kahan Darak, let me know, bro. I'll go, even if I'm supposed to work tomorrow, I'll still go with you, bro. That is nothing, bro. You come before that, so I got you. You said 13:30?
Khan, the water, yeah, it is 13:30.
Man, you know I ain't military. What is that, like 7:30? 8:30?
My bad.
It's 1:30.
Yeah, I thought y'all was talking about address.
1:30, man.
Military, I don't know.
Yeah,
okay, that's right. 13 is after 12. Stupid. Like I told you, sometimes I'm a little slow, man. You gotta.
It's not. No, you're not, brother. You're not good, brother. It's yeah, my bad.
Yeah, 1:30. Oh, most def, man. I got you, bro. Even if I did work tomorrow, I take off after lunch.
Yeah, Khan. Because I told him, Kahan, I said I didn't want to, I let him know at the last minute. I can still have him come down there. But I probably won't. I mean, I know, he probably would serve best to be down there as a witness. So,
this is gonna be in Copper's Cove.
Copper's Cove, kind of the venue right here on Main Street.
Main Street, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right, but kind of by the train tracks.
That's right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come in. I'm gonna have to come by you and head back.
All right. Either way, brother. I told you before we even came to the meeting. I got you, bro. So I'll be there. We'll be in touch when we wake up. And Saturday, I don't like to talk and make promises, but we still got that going Saturday, man. I finally got the apparel. I got the apparel, so So the videos are starting to come. Then and now we're gonna be right back. We're gonna be right there with you, my brother. Good work too, my brother. Doing a good job, man, with them videos.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you're doing an outstanding job. Yeah.
But I don't want to keep nobody up either. My bad. Salaki.
All right, so I'm gonna say shalom, man. Everyone be safe, man.
Shalom.
Ellie
Shalom.
Israel, you as well, brother.
Shalom, shalom. Arab, Tawab, Layalat, Tawabium.
Shalom.